Hello and welcome to the Grow Your Recruitment Business in 2022 LinkedIn Live Show. It's the first episode of the new year and I am so glad to be back. As always, there's a short delay between me going live on StreamYard and you being able to see me on LinkedIn and Facebook. So as you log on, please do say hello in comments and let me know you can see and hear me okay. That would be fantastic. Apologies if I'm a little bit rusty. We had a break from the show in December. I'm back all year now from January, and I'd really like to hear from you guys. As you know, this show is for you. It's all about how to grow your recruitment business or desk. So I want to know what you want to learn, what you want to hear from us, what sort of guests you want us to have on for the rest of the year. So please do let me know so that we can give you as much content that is going to be useful for you as possible. So as I said, please do come on and say hello. Let me know in comments who's watching, because it's always nice to know who's here with us. If you are watching on Facebook, you will need to give StreamYard permission to show your name, or if you want to be anonymous, just say hello and let me know what your name is then. If you're watching on replay, please still say hello. Give me a hashtag replay, as it's always really nice to know who's been here as well. So as you log on, come on, say hello, and let me know who's watching. Now, today's show is all about setting yourself up for success in 2022 to make sure that you have an amazing year in your recruitment business. It's just me with no guests today. I'm going to do this live workshop style. So at the end of the session, although you may well want to go back through and watch it again and make some notes, you should have your full action plan ready to attack 2022. So if you're a business owner or a manager and you have staff members, I would totally recommend not only going through these exercises for yourself, but also getting your staff to do it as well, or actually sitting down and doing it with your staff. So hello to everyone that's logged on so far. Hi, Sally. Hi, Fiona. Hi, Kyle. The topics that we're going to cover today include goals, habits, overwhelm, reflection, and really, really importantly, accountability. So as you're logging on, I would absolutely love to know in comments if you have already set your 2022 goals. And if so, what are those big goals? What are those big things that you guys are really looking to achieve in 2022? If you haven't set your goals yet, what's holding you back? Or is it a little bit scary? Do you not quite know how to do it? Please do let me know in comments as we go along as well. I want this session to be as interactive as possible, so please do feel free to ask questions as we go along. If your questions don't get answered during the session, I will come back and I will answer them at the end. Now, I'm a really big believer in goals. I don't think it's any coincidence at all that my most successful years in the last 11 years of running my recruitment business are the years in which I had goals and really stuck to them. I knew exactly where I was headed, and I got there. Now, the years that I didn't really have goals, I tended to plod along, treading water, not really bringing my business forward at all. And those are the years that really I'm not as proud of in my business, but it's purely for the fact that I didn't know where I wanted to get to, so I couldn't have a plan to get there. So the reason that I wanted to make this the topic for my first LinkedIn Live show of the year is because I've spent the last couple of weeks doing my perfectly planned 2022 coaching sessions with my one-to-one clients, and they found them really, really useful. So hopefully you will too. So whilst my clients tend to be recruitment business owners and directors and senior managers, as you know, the things that I will be talking about today can be adopted to whatever level you are in the business, from consultant through to owner or director, or indeed if you're not in the recruitment industry at all, or if you're in a support role. So let's get started. So in the first section of today's live, I'm going to take you through the goal setting process that I take my clients through. Now, for me, goal setting isn't just about business. It's about life in general. If you're hitting your personal goals, this tends to feed into hitting your business goals and vice versa as well. So for me, they're inextricably linked. So that will be a theme that we will kind of see through this session as well. So as I said earlier on, please feel free to watch this again on the replay, pause the video when needed to kind of reflect and do the work that you need to do this to make sure that you have the right things down for you as well. I'll also send out a copy of the things that I would recommend you consider when planning your 2022 later on. So if you'd like a copy of that, then just let me know in comments. So before we start looking at planning our 2022, it's really, really important that we take some time to reflect on the year just gone. So let's start by looking back at 2021. Now, 2021 was such a strange year for the recruitment industry. This time last year, we were all still reeling from 2020. We were in lockdown, we were homeschooling. There wasn't any certainty whatsoever. No one really knew what was going to happen with COVID. We hadn't got the vaccines yet. We didn't know what was going to happen with the economy, and we didn't really know what was going to happen with our industry at all. If you told me this time last year that we would have been batting jobs off with a stick, then I probably would have laughed at you, and I'm sure you're the same. So hopefully you're going to find it much easier to plan for 2022 than you did last year to plan for 2021. So let's take a minute to reflect on your 2021. Now, I want you to consider and perhaps make some notes on the following. Overall, how was your year? How do you feel 2021 went for you, both personally and professionally? What were your big achievements, or what were your highlights of 2021? Take a moment to pat yourself on the back for the things that you did achieve in 2021, and then look at the ways that you went about achieving them. Is there anything specific that you did last year that really, really played into your success? Because if there was, then that's something that you need to keep doing this year. If there were things that you did last year that actually didn't work, you learned some lessons from, they didn't make any difference whatsoever, then those are the things that we potentially need to start leaving behind. So overall, how was your year? Let me know in comments. I would absolutely love to know. How was your 2021? What were your biggest achievements or highlights of the year? And how did you achieve those things? And similarly, what were your biggest lows? What didn't go right this last year? What didn't go as you intended? What can you learn from those things? If it was out of your control, is there anything that we can do to bring it back into your control? Any sort of process you can put in place? Or actually, is it just better left behind? What do you wish had gone better last year that you can improve on in this year? That's really, really important. Before we can start planning for this year, we really, really need to reflect on what's come before. Now, really importantly, what do you wish you'd done in 2021 that you put off for one reason or another? We all do it. We all have really, really good intentions, and then it doesn't happen. So what do you really wish you'd done in 2021 that you put off for one reason or another that you can really achieve in 2022 if you set your mind to it? Now, if your 2021 wasn't great, that's okay. I'm a massive believer in the fact that every day is a new day, and it's our opportunity to improve on the day before. So if 2021 wasn't your year, that's absolutely okay. I want you to look at 2022 as your opportunity to improve on it. If last year was your worst year ever, still doesn't mean that 2022 can't be the best one. If you put your mind to it and if you put your work in the right places. So your first task for kind of the workshop today is to reflect on your 2021. As I said earlier on, I will send out a sheet to those that would like it. So just let me know in comments about the things that you may want to consider when doing this. And then once you've finished your 2021 reflection, I want you to congratulate yourself on what you achieved in 2021. And then I want you to move on. I want you to move on to 2022. Let's not get bogged down in the past, because today is all about planning for the future. So just see what people have put. Someone has said that they wish they'd placed more structure in their business. They wish they'd done more activity. They wish they'd committed more. They wish they'd worked more, maybe put in more hours. Okay, so that's okay. If we know where we've gone wrong, then we can look at what we need to do to adjust that in 2022. So as I said, let me know if you have any questions about any of this as we go through. I'll send that sheet through later. So just let me know in comments if you want it. And let's move on to our amazing plans for 2022. So as mentioned earlier, when planning and setting my goals and planning how I'm going to achieve them, I don't just plan for business, but for all aspects of my life, because I believe that success in one area is inextricably linked to another. Now that's going to be different for everyone, but I like to section my overall plans for the year into several sections. And interestingly, work is only one of them. So I separate into 6 sections, and work is actually only one of them. And that's important to me, because I don't live to work, I work to live. So that's really important to me when setting my goals. So the ones that I've used this year, my sections for my plan are business, family, health, travel, personal development, because that's something that's important to me, to always be gaining knowledge, and self-care, because I know that's somewhere where I really, really didn't do well in last year. Now, you can do this however you like, and it depends upon what your priorities are and what's important to you. You might just want to write down headings, or you might want to do a mind map. Or if you're more visual or creative, you might want to do a dream board and literally print things off Instagram or Pinterest and stick them on and really make your goals come to life. However it feels right to you is probably the way to do it. Now, you might have lots of goals for 2022, but to avoid overwhelm, I like to focus on the big stuff. Focus on the really big ones, the really meaty ones. So I'm going to take you through a process, and I'm going to take you through a process specifically focusing on your business goals to begin with, but it's the same process that you can do for any of those other sections that you have in terms of prioritizing your goals, not getting overwhelmed, and making sure that you're held accountable to them as well. So let's start with your business goals. Let's start with your work goals and what you really want to achieve this year. Now, if we were sitting down together on New Year's Eve 2022, and you're raising a glass and congratulating yourself on a great year, what would you be congratulating yourself on? What is that one, maybe 2 or 3 really big things that you really want to achieve at work or in your business this year? Usually these things will come to you pretty quickly. You get a gut feeling on these things. I've done this exercise with a lot of my one-to-one clients this week, and that's tended to be what happened. Now, when setting goals, I always like to start with the end in mind and work backwards from there in terms of what you need to do to achieve your goals, what you need to do to get there. And I like to do that to avoid overwhelm. If you were sat here at your desk on the 2nd of January, you had this massive goal for 2022, you may have felt overwhelmed, you may have panicked slightly because actually that seems like a huge, huge thing. So what I like to do is start with that huge thing, work it backwards and break it down into small steps. Now, as I mentioned before, I've done this exercise with a lot of my one-to-one clients the last few weeks, and the overarching things that they came up with for their business goals were things like quit my corporate job and start my own recruitment business, generate 100k in revenue, take on my first member of staff, earn X amount in bonus, win 10 new clients, double the business revenue in 2022, increase headcount by 5, be promoted to director in my business, replace my corporate salary and go full-time in my business. So lots of different things, but lots of kind of big, hairy goals. So I just want you to take a few minutes to identify your overarching big goals for 2022. By the end of the year, what are those really, really big goals that you want to have achieved by the end of the year in your business? If you feel comfortable doing so, please do feel free to share them in comments. What are those big goals? When I asked you what was the big thing you want to achieve in 2022 in your work or your business, was there something that came to you straight away? Now, don't be afraid to dream big here. Don't be afraid to set big goals, because it's okay to set goals that scare you a little bit. It's not a bad thing at all. But remember that Rome wasn't built in a day. And if you are feeling a little bit overwhelmed by your goals, it's okay. You don't have to achieve them today or tomorrow. You've got a whole year to get there. If you're almost there by the end of the year, that's still an achievement, and we set a higher goal for the year after. The important thing is that you know where you're headed so that you can put the steps in place to get where you want to be over time. And you have time. It is a brand new year. So don't get overwhelmed by setting a big goal and expecting yourself to achieve it today, tomorrow, this week, because that's likely not going to happen. I'm currently rereading a great book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. If you haven't read it, then I would absolutely, totally recommend it. James is a really big believer in the small steps taken every day to get you to where you want to be. And one of my favorite quotes from the book is that success is the product of daily habits, not once in a lifetime transformations. Believe me, if you're comparing yourself to others, perhaps on social media, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and they appear to be having overnight success, in reality, they've probably put a lot of work in to get there. It's just that it's starting to pay off for them. So let's think about what those really big goals may be. What are those big things that you really want to achieve by the end of the year? Please do feel free to put them in comments if you feel comfortable doing so. So you now have your big goals. You might have one big one, or you may have several. It really doesn't matter, and it really depends on you individually as to what you want to achieve. So now we work backwards. So let me take some of the examples from the goals that I mentioned earlier. So for instance, the chap whose overarching goal was to generate 100k in revenue in the first year in his business, and that's quite an easy one to work backwards from, isn't it? So if he wants to generate 100k in revenue this year, and he's an independent recruiter purely focusing on perms, the first thing he needs to do is work out his average fee, which we worked out to be about 5k. So to generate his 100k, with an average placement fee of 5k, he needs to make 20 placements over the year to hit his goal. Now suddenly his 100k is only 20 placements, which is less than 2 placements a month, which doesn't seem so scary anymore. Now, working backwards, he next needed to consider what his job to placement ratio was. So he's a brand new business, so he's kept it quite low. So if he had a job to placement ratio of 50%, to hit his goal, he'd need to take on 40 jobs over the course of the year and fill half of them. So that's not a lot, is it? 40 jobs over the course of the year, it becomes achievable. Then he needed to look at how many jobs he could expect from existing clients that he's bringing with him in 2022, who've already told him they've got work for him, and how many jobs he'd need from new clients, and how many new clients, etc. And then the activity he'd need to do to bring on those new clients. And that's where his kind of marketing and business plan came from as well. So you get the point. We start with the big goal in mind. It might seem scary, it might seem like a really big goal, but actually if we work it backwards to the things we need to achieve it, suddenly it becomes achievable, it becomes less scary. So for another example, for the chap whose goal was to retire himself from his corporate job to work full-time on his business, this guy at the moment is working shifts full-time, because he works shifts, it gives him essentially, he's working full-time on his business as well, but he's not necessarily making money from it at the moment. And his overarching goal for the next year is to retire himself from his corporate job, to make enough money and build enough consistency in his business that he doesn't need that corporate job, that backup anymore. So to work back from his goal, he essentially would need to cover his salary as well as all his business costs, and put some money in his business account so that he had a little bit of a backup just in case things didn't go as consistently as hoped. We then worked out what that figure was, so what he needs to be consistently earning in his business this year to make it happen by the end of the year for him. We then needed to work back from there as to how many placements he needed to make based upon his average fee, how many clients and jobs he would need, and what marketing activity we would need to do to get those jobs, etc. So in nearly every case of doing this exercise with my one-to-one clients, the process of breaking down their big goals into small actionable steps showed them that they were actually very, very achievable. And it stops overwhelm from kicking in. It's all about progress. It's all about having a process that you're doing something, these small things every day that make progress towards that bigger goal. And suddenly it's really, really achievable. So my best advice for you in terms of achieving your bigger goals is to break them down into actionable steps that you need to achieve to get there and celebrate your little wins along the way. Then all you have to do is put in the work and consistent activity to make them happen. Now, the other really, really important thing about making your goals achievable is to have a reason for setting them. This is especially important if you're working in a corporate business. I did a coaching session with a senior manager in a business this week, and she has set targets for all of the staff within her business. She set a particular target for a member of staff, and I said, that's brilliant. What are his personal goals? What does that mean to him? She had no idea because she'd not sat down and actually had that conversation with him. We get bogged down sometimes in revenue. And actually, it's what that revenue represents to the person that's actually generating it that is much more important. So you want to generate 100k in revenue. Amazing. But why? It's especially important when setting goals with your staff. You don't just want them working towards goals for goals' sake because you've told them to and they want to keep their job. You want them to really buy into those goals. You want to actually center them on something. So for example, reaching that 100k in revenue isn't about the revenue. It may be to your business, but it's not to your staff member. It may be about the bonus they'll make based on that and how that bonus can help them to achieve their personal goals, such as buying a house or going on a trip. Actually sitting down with your staff and knowing what motivates them is so important, just as it's really important that you look at what motivates you and really look at what your goal represents to you and your life in general. If it's just about making money for money's sake, then they and you are less likely to achieve it because it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean as much. So sit down with yourself and your staff and look at these big goals. So you've got your big goal, amazing. What does it mean to you? What does it enable you to do? How will you feel when you achieve it? So as an example, when I first came back to my business from my maternity leave 7 years ago, my first big goal was to generate a certain amount of money, but it wasn't about the money. The amount of money meant that my business could sustain my lifestyle. It could pay my childcare costs. It could pay my business costs. It could pay my general bills. But actually, what that allowed me to do was work flexibly around my daughter. It allowed me to take her to nursery and pick her up. It allowed me to have Fridays off at the time. Fast forward 7 years, and my main driver is still that I get to take my daughter to school and pick her up every day, that I have massive flexibility, that I get to spend time with her that I wouldn't if I was working in a corporate recruitment role. I could very, very easily jack it in and go and get a recruitment role tomorrow. But at the end of the day, that's not for me because that's not my overarching goal. My overarching goal isn't about the money. It's about what the money represents. So when your goals will allow you to do something or achieve something that is really important to you, then it helps you stay on track during the good and bad times because it's important. Now, I had 9 months away from my business for mat leave. I completely shut it down. I couldn't find anyone I trusted to look after it. And I started again from scratch because I knew that I would never get that time back with my daughter. And you better believe that when I went back into my business and started from scratch, I had, 9 months off is a big deal. That being able to work flexibly and have that time with her was enough of an incentive to reach my financial goal because of what it actually represented. Because the alternative would have been to go back to working long hours and not have that time with her. I had to hit my goal because the alternative wasn't an option. So you can see how your business goals directly affect your personal life and vice versa. And that's why it's really, really important that we take it into account, not just for ourselves as business owners, but also for our staff if we have them as well. So now that you've set your business goals, you can move on to setting your other goals for other areas of your life. And again, we want to take it through the same process. So start with your big, hairy goal. Start with the end in mind and then plan backwards on how to achieve it. So for example, my health goal this year is to exercise 3 times a week. I'm sure that many of you probably have a similar goal for your health. Now, I was so busy last year that I really didn't prioritize my health at all. And I'm sure that's the same for a lot of you in recruitment as well. Now, high cholesterol runs in my family. I'm very aware of that. I wasn't taking regular exercise and I also have asthma, so not kind of a good combination. So my overall goal this year is to exercise 3 times a week. But actually, it's not enough. If my goal was to exercise 3 times a week, I could easily not do it. So I had to bind it to something. Now, binding it to something is that I want to be healthy for my daughter to be around longer, which is a very, very good goal. However, is it still going to get me out of the house 3 times a week? Probably, but maybe not doing what I should do. So my big goal changed from doing exercise 3 times a week to achieving and completing the Couch to 5K program, and then to continue doing that 3 times a week once I've actually got to that 5K, which is the goal of the program. So my steps to achieving the Couch to 5K program were to book my exercise time out in my diary as a meeting with myself, so that it's non-negotiable. If I do not book it in my diary, it's not going to get done because life gets in the way. So I'm booking it in my diary so it becomes part of my routine. And when I do it enough, eventually it becomes a habit. And that's why something like Couch to 5K is brilliant, because it's those small steps 3 times a week to get you to where you want to be. And I've done it before and I absolutely did not believe that I could do it. And it absolutely works by building in those small habits that build you towards that bigger goal. So I'd like you to do the same exercise that we've done through business and my health goal in all of the areas that you want to set goals for in 2022. Now, remember to start with the end in mind and then work backwards as to the steps that you need to take to achieve your goals. But just setting your goals and planning your actions, it doesn't guarantee success. Now, wouldn't it be great if it did? But we're all different. And setting goals and making plans, although an extremely important factor in our success, is only one part of the puzzle. Now, you could easily set your goals today, make your plans, and then shove them in a drawer. We've all done it, haven't we? Forget about them and we don't look at them until the next year. And likely the exact same things go back on the list. So what will make the difference? And very simply, it's accountability. Either holding yourself accountable or getting someone to do it for you. So here are some of my tips for accountability. Number one, make your goals visible so that you see them on a regular basis. Don't shove them in a drawer. Now, you might want to make a dream board, as we discussed earlier, and stick it on the wall above your desk, or you might want to invest in a planner where your goals and targets are written and you can review them regularly. I have a Carry & Co planner, which I absolutely love. If anyone wants the link for it, I will bob it in the comments for you later on. Let me know. And the reason I love this planner is because it's got a goals section for both the year and for each month and quarter as well. So it holds you accountable because you're not just looking at it once a year, you're looking at them on a regular basis. So if anyone wants the link to that, let me know. And these things, by having them visually available to you, by seeing them on a regular basis, reminds us to go back to our goals. Now, I would also suggest that if you are someone that has big plans and makes big plans every year but doesn't quite achieve them, they move from year to year, then get an accountability partner or hire a coach to keep you on track and hold you accountable. Now, that could be someone within your business or your network that you meet with regularly. Or if you need guidance on how to achieve your goals as well, or a bit of inspiration or regular motivation, then hire a coach like me. Other coaches are available. If you are going to look at investing in a coach, then you should see it as an investment rather than a cost. A good coach will help you to achieve more, and therefore you get a return on that investment. Now, a coaching relationship is also a really personal thing. You need to get on really, really well with your coach. They need to be able to challenge you to step out of your comfort zone, but you shouldn't dread seeing them. It should be seen as a positive thing. Similarly, if you're going to look at an accountability partner, it needs to be someone that you can be 100% honest with. So when they ask you how your business is or what's going on, you tell them the truth. You don't try and brush it under the carpet. You don't say that everything's okay if it isn't. It needs to be that you have kind of that total transparency. And if you don't have anyone in your life that you feel gets it, or that kind of knows what you don't feel comfortable sharing that with them, then maybe a coach is the way to go. So it'll be different for everyone. Now, another great way of holding yourself accountable is to publicly tell people about your goals so that your audience can hold you accountable. So if you're active on, say, Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever your network is, actively tell people what your goals are, because that will hold you accountable that by physically telling other people. You tell people you're going to do something, you've got to do it. So for instance, one of my big goals this year is to write a book. As many of you know, one of my big passions is personal branding and the effect it can have on a recruiter's business. So one of my goals for this year is to write a book to give recruiters a step-by-step guide on building a personal brand using the things that I've learned along the way. So there. Now I've said it, so you can all hold me accountable. Say things publicly, get them out there, and it will hold you accountable. Accountability is massively important. If you hold yourself accountable or you find someone to do it for you, if you write your goals down and come up with a plan to achieve them, then you're already halfway there towards a very, very successful 2022. Now, this is a subject we could talk about all day, but I'm conscious I've already been talking for half an hour. So hopefully you've got some actionable tips today that will help you to set your own goals and be accountable and set you up for a more successful 2022. If any of you would like to go through the whole process with me, as I said, I do with my one-to-one clients, of mapping out your goals and action plans of how you can achieve them in one of my coaching sessions. I'm holding the Perfectly Planned 2022 sessions throughout January, so just get in touch. Or if you feel like you need help with that accountability, then I have weekly or monthly coaching options. So please do get in touch if you need any help and we can have a chat and see if it's a good fit. So we're nearly done for today, but we do have time for some questions. So if you have any questions that I haven't already answered, then please type them in the chat box now. If you are watching on replay, still feel free to ask your questions and I'll come back to you with an answer and actions that you can do as well. So just going to give it a few minutes. Bob your questions in the comments box and I will try and answer them to the best of my ability. If you go back and watch the replay later, pause it, reflect on it, really use it to think about what you want to do. And if you have any questions, to come back and ask me later on. Now, as I said, it's the first show of 2022. The show is called Grow Your Recruitment Business. And it's really, really important to me that this show continues to support you in growing your recruitment business or desk in the new year. So to help me to do that, I would absolutely love to know what you would like to see on this show. Now, you can help me to do that by commenting with things you're struggling with, the challenges you face in 2022, the things you particularly want to learn from myself or my kind of fellow trainers and other leaders in my network, or people you would like me to bring on as guests this year. So please do let me know. Please do utilise this as a resource. We are here every Thursday at 12:30, other than in some school holidays, which I'll always let you know about beforehand, so you know where to come when you need that information and inspiration. If you have any questions, please do come on and let me know. And if not, thank you so much for joining me. I hope it's been useful for you. And I shall see you at the same time next week. Thank you very much. See you then.